Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Jeff Kingston, and this morning we are privileged to have three of the most notable personages of the world of fine watchmaking. We are privileged to have Tony de Haas of Lange et Söhne, Christian Selmoni of Vacheron Constantin, and Stephen Forsey of Greubel Forsey. And our topic today with these notable people is going to be the most notable watches in the world, which is to say the grand complication. And just by way of introduction, Stephen Forsey began his career at Asprey's in London, and then moved after several years there and doing after-sales service to Renault and Papy. And by the way, you will see that common thread today. They have been able to turn out people who have risen to the very top of watchmaking. He was at Renault and Papy until 2001, when he and Robert Greubel formed WatchTime, and then what followed in 2004 was Greubel Forsey. And he is going to be talking about their incredible tourbillon perpetual calendar watch. Tony de Haas also was at Renault and Papy. He began in The Hague, had a period doing after-sales service. He was at Renault and Papy from 99 till 2002, when he joined Lange and became the product director at Lange et Söhne. And at Vacheron Constantin, we have Christian Selmoni, who today is the heritage and style director. He hails from the Vallée du Joux. He has been at Vacheron Constantin since 1990 at a variety of positions, including product director, artistic director, and since 2017, his present position. He will be talking to us about the cabonotier, complicated watches, as well as the tourbillon chronograph. But we start with Stephen Forsey. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, and thanks for joining us today on this WatchTime Live. It's a great pleasure to be with you. We're on a slightly different format as everybody. So I'm actually down in Mexico City, and I've got some assistants back at the atelier in La Chaux-de-Fonds to be able to share with you a little bit about our QP equation. Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. Robert Greubel and myself, two watchmakers. Earlier in our careers, Robert was prototyping and prototyped also at IWC in the early days with Klaus on the Da Vinci calendar. And of course, so he had an experience early on with perpetual calendars. On my side, as Jeff mentioned, I was in London doing after-sales service and restoring antique watches. So I also came in contact with them. So Robert and I had a strong appreciation for calendars and indications, astronomical law, calendar terrestrial indications. So our QP equation is a piece that we started working on actually in 2006. It took 8 years to develop, because we started out by asking ourselves the questions: what would our ideal perpetual calendar look like? Now, Greubel Forsey, that meant it was going to be the very first calendar watch or calendar timepiece that we put together. And so we decided that elements which would be important for us would be legibility of the calendar, terrestrial indications, hence the equation of time indication, and then to have that intuitive use for the collector to be able to interact easily with it. Security mechanisms we wanted, so that there would be complete safety operating the calendar mechanism, and also to, of course, to have a fully integrated movement. So I've got, I think maybe you can see on the screen, we've got a little screen here. So we've popped up a QR code if anybody wants a link to our website for more information there. And you've got a slide there with our QP equation with the red gold and a rather interesting chocolate finished gold dial in this version here, which we've just recently presented. To demonstrate, because the QP equation is with me in Mexico, the red gold with the chocolate dial. So we've got back at the atelier, we've got Michelle, our head of communications, who's got a live feed here, actually on a white gold version with the rhodium dial. So here we can see the main indications, a classic hour-minute concentric display, 12 hours display. So then having down towards the 8 o'clock position, a small opening in the dial to have a 24-hour window there. Then we see the towards the right at the 4 o'clock area, we've got day of the week, date, large date, and month, all inline display there. Very nice and easy to read, always centered and easily accessible on the wrist. You'll notice then moving up that side towards 2 o'clock, we've got the power reserve display there with 72 hours running time. So interestingly, a hand wound perpetual calendar. So we love to keep that, that feel of hand winding and the interaction for the collector as being able to really master the chronometric performance. So there with our 24-second tourbillon as the driving force, the motor behind that, fast rotation, 25-degree angle, balance and escapement, 24-second rotation of the cage.
Stephen,
So
if I can interject just one thing that I find very striking and just wonderful about that watch. You've arranged the day of the week, the date, and the month in the way a person would say it, Friday, the 23rd of October.
Yes, yeah, indeed. Thanks, Jeff. That's, you know, that is an element. It's not easy because, of course, it looks like a very fluid display there, but there are actually 4 different levels already with the discs, the day of the week and the month being on the same diameter. And then, of course, the date feature also then being able to integrate all those elements together was really quite a challenge, and to get it within the space between the hour-minute hand and the exterior of the bezel. That gave us with Robert in terms of creation the possibility to have a small asymmetrical form there of the bezel. So we can see zooming out a little, we can perhaps see the got an asymmetry coming out at 4 o'clock and around the tourbillon there. So as we mentioned, then that inline display, the tourbillon, the 24-second, down towards 6 o'clock, where we've got the small subdial there with the leap year indicator. So there we can we get that confirmation that we're looking at a perpetual calendar mechanism. So with the B in French, bissextile stands for leap year, and the 1, 2, 3 years of the cycle to complete that. But then it becomes more interesting, because this is where things become more complete. If we just flip over to look at the back just for a moment, we will see there down towards the right-hand side, we've got the year actually so we've got the full millesime there, 2020 up now. But put on the back because we wanted to keep the main display not too overloaded. There's a lot going on already, and the year we don't need that often. We just need it for setting. So then we can come back to the display side for a moment, and then we see that behind, as I mentioned, the 4 discs, we've got the heart or the brain of the perpetual calendar, and that we've called the mechanical computer. It's our 7th invention, and this is really this was the secret to being able to master the calendar in terms of programming and setting here. So fully integrated in the movement, taking the whole space right down behind those discs. The mechanical computer is an assembled geared mechanism with cams and movable fingers within a programming system, and allowing us to put together the whole calendar cycle. The difficulty being to master day of the week, date, month, and year all simultaneously. So then we have an interesting element. So we think, well, perpetual calendar, how do we set this up? And if we look around the case body just for a moment, we'd be looking for the traditional correctors, but they're completely absent. The case body, the side of the case, just a nice satin finish there. All we see is at the crown, just a single pusher on the crown. And then if we look at the dial towards the 2 o'clock position, we've got two small openings there, one labeled HM and the other QP. And this is where it all takes place. So the crown pusher selects the mode of two different possibilities there. We have HM obviously for hour minute correction, and then simply one pull to set hour minute, and we can turn it forwards in time. And then back to QP. So we push in the crown, select QP mode with the red. And then when we pull the crown one step there, we've got the quick correction feature there. So that enables us, then I think Michelle's going to be able to do a little demo there. So actually we can see that you can actually motor through. We've designed this to have a rapid correction. So we've already gone through to November, and by turning the crown towards you, 3 days per turn of the crown, actually, to enable us to set forwards, and day, date, and month all remain coded together. So, but what is unusual is normally now I would have to take a vacation for my perpetual, but the unique nature of the mechanical computer behind the QP equation means that, as you can see now, Michel is coming back 1st of November, back to October, and motoring back through to bring us back today, Friday, 23rd of October. So this is the very unusual and groundbreaking element here, that we have this possibility to do the rapid correction anytime. It's also a feature of the calendar system that we've devised, looking at the 24-hour display towards 8 o'clock there. That enables us just to see day or night, and in the night time that goes to red towards the, as we can see, we've got a little overlay there, between about 10:30 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. So, of course, during that time, the calendar mechanism could be engaged, because we might be correcting 28th of February through to 1st of March. So we don't want to do a quick correction there, because that could cause a problem. But what we've done is we've built into the perpetual here, we built in a security mechanism, so that if we happened to, by accident, have it in QP correction mode, quick correction, in that red zone, when we pull the crown, we have a default setting back to hand setting mode until we're out of that red zone where everything's clear. Of course, in hand setting mode, you can set forwards as just as easily as you can set backwards, going back between successive days. So then, now if that's the principal indications on the display side. And then if we turn it over, we'll come back to an overview there of the movement side of the QP equation, and focusing down particularly there, we see towards that the bottom left there, we see a larger opening there. This is two sapphire discs here, which have actually got rotating in real time. So the lower disc, we can just see to the left side there is a white rectangular scale with minutes on it. And then the upper disc is the one with colors. So we've got, I'm going to tilt it a little bit more, Michelle, to just a little bit of reflection there coming off the disc, I think. There we are, coming into focus. That's really nice. So there we can see we've got the 12 months of the year. We've got the seasons: blue for winter, green for summer, for spring, red for summer, and brown for autumn. Then we can see that we have the the solstice. So winter solstice, shortest day of the year; summer solstice, longest day of the year; and then the spring and autumn equinox as well, when daylight and night time are exactly the same length. And then we see in the middle, within that, we see there that we've got the this blue and red graph with a rather unusual format. And this was where, with Robert, we wanted to have terrestrial indications. So the equation of time is the subject there. And so the equation of time itself is the difference between apparent solar time and mean time on the watch. And what that means is, because the Earth moves around the sun in an elliptical trajectory during the year, when we're closer to the sun will appear to be fast. And then when we're further away, the sun will appear to be slow. So to decode that in this nice intuitive display, what we've done is the red line signifies when the sun is fast in relation to the watch's mean time displayed, and the blue trace enables us to see when the sun is slow. So we simply subtract. The idea of this,
Stephen,
yeah,
can
of
I
course.
just interject a moment? I think many times equation of time is one of the most mysterious things for many watch collectors to understand. And would you agree that it would be a decent way to describe it, to say it's kind of the difference between what you would see on a sundial and our nice, regular, precise 24-hour days or civil time?
Absolutely, absolutely, Jeff. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's because 200-300 years ago, people perhaps couldn't afford a clock or a precision clock or a watch. So, but maybe a sundial they could have to get an idea of time. But they would have that part of the year when they're up to something like 14 minutes fast in terms of the sundial time, and then another time of year when they're going to be down to something like 16 minutes slow. So there we can see those on the display there, and I think Michelle's also got a little overlay showing a dynamic. So there we can actually see the white scale moving forward as it makes one rotation of the white scale is 1 month. So the upper disc moving a 12th of a rotation there, relatively. And so we can see the equation of time there in the blue. Gradually the sun is speeding up until we get to the point when we reach one of the four summits there, when the equation of time, sundial or solar time, actually coincide exactly with the time on your watch.
So
So
Stephen, yeah, sorry.
yeah, please.
No, please.
Yeah, so basically the idea was there, rather than head towards perhaps a more traditional approach where we would expect to have a moon phase, perhaps. For us, that's an astronomical indication, but it was a nice opportunity here, thanks to the mechanical computer, where we could display the tropical year, the full, the exact tropical year on this equation of time side. But we weren't looking for high precision in that. What we wanted to do was show here the relationship of equation of time to as a terrestrial indication, its interaction, as we've got those 5 different indications all on that one display there.
That's fantastic, Stephen. Thank you very much. And I think now we will move on to Tony de Haas, And we're going to hear the magic words that come from Lange. Whenever you hear pour le mérite, you're talking about a big deal watch. And Tony, you've got a pour le mérite for us today.
Yeah, let me just start up the presentation. I have just a simple presentation for you. Maybe that's a bit boring, but I do my best to keep it, to make it quite sexy for you guys. What I'm doing here, I hope you all see the presentation. At least you see something.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Perfect. What are we doing? And I'm going after Stephen's wonderful presentation of a really amazing watch and handcraftsmanship. I will jump with you on a little bit in the history first. Today, or this year, we're celebrating 175 years of watchmaking in Glashütte. We celebrate that by some 3 unique watches, actually, in our special honey gold. That's our own alloy, which we have developed now the 10th year. We're using it only in rare occasions. That's the gold. That's the gold which is the color of honey. Don't worry, it's not the taste. I tested it, and it doesn't taste anymore. But the honey gold is double the hardness of a regular 18-karat gold. It's all the features. And we have launched 3 watches, very classical, to celebrate the 175th anniversary of watchmaking in Glashütte. The first watch, the 1815 thin, is a very simple movement, 72 hours of power reserve, a 2-piece handmade enamel dial. The second one is the 1815 rattrapante honey gold. It's a very classical approach of a rattrapante watch. And the third one, and that's in fact where Jeff, you were referring to, the Turbograph perpetual pour le mérite in honey gold. That's the beast. But let me just explain why all of this. 175 years ago, this man you see in the picture brought watchmaking to Glashütte, a little town in the Ore Mountains in Saxony, in Germany. Ferdinand Adolf Lange. And he did his training first at the court watchmakers in Dresden. Later on, he had his travels. He traveled to Switzerland, France, England to learn watchmaking. And he came back and had a dream. He wanted to found his own company. He didn't have any money. He didn't have anything to start. So he went to the government and they said, okay, we're willing to supply you some money when you start watchmaking in a very poor region, the Ore Mountains, a little town called Glashütte. So exactly 175 years ago, he brought watchmaking, in fact, to the farmers. He trained them. He started his own company in December 7, 1845. And then, generations long, they all worked and built up the company. And not only the company, in fact, Glashütte became a whole town of watchmaking. There were ex-employees or employees after 10 years joining Lange who said, I want to go independent. And Ferdinand Adolf Lange, he even stimulated these watchmakers to get their own company. And you may heard of watchmakers like Assmann, Gossmann, and so on. Actually, it was quite, as today, a watch company town, little town of Glashütte, until the end of the Second World War. As you may know, the Glashütte, the eastern part of Germany, was occupied by the Soviets. And the Soviets' communism regime do not like capitalism, so company owners and so on. So all the companies there were disowned and depropriated, and the son, the great-grandson of Ferdinand Adolf Lange, Walter Lange, had to flee in the West. He did that in 1984. And he tried to reopen. We found the Lange and Söhne in Western Germany, where he then lived. But it was extremely difficult. I think Lange and Söhne is something which belongs to Glashütte. That's the only place in the world. So what happens after the reunification in 1990? He had a dream. He was 65 years at that point. Normal people go and retire, but he had a dream. And together with the help of a great industries visionary, the Mr. Günther Blümlein, who was at that time boss of IWC and Jaeger-LeCoultre, both started at December 7 in 1990 to recreate Lange and Söhne. That resulted in the launch of the 4 new watches in 1994, and one of them was a tourbillon. It was the first tourbillon wristwatch with also the fusion chain mechanism. And that was the base, honoring for us the idea to create the Turbograph Perpetual, because in fact, the first watch in 1994 was of course already long time sold out. And in 2005, we included a rattrapante chronograph on top of that movement. So there was the Turbograph. Later on, in 2017, we've launched Turbograph Perpetual in platinum, which was such a huge success that we now use, it's sold out, and we now, in fact, launch the 2nd generation of the Turbograph Perpetual in honey gold. It has 5 complications, so according to the Swiss rules, we could call this a grand complication. But we already did a grand complication in 2013, the grand complication, with grande sonnerie, petite sonnerie, chronograph, mono pusher, rattrapante with flying seconds, perpetual calendar, and the minute repeater. So this one, what are the 5 complications? As you can see on the front, it has a tourbillon, and it has a 1-minute tourbillon, in fact, and it has the fusion chain, it has a chronograph, it has a rattrapante, and it has a perpetual calendar. That's calendar L133.1. What this is really the opposite of what we do with the Zeitwerk products or the Datograph or triple splits, which is of course a fine mechanical watchmaking, but on a more contemporary way. This is really a homage to classical watchmaking. So the fusion chain, it's well hidden in the movement. Unfortunately, it's hard to see. And the tourbillon and the classical perpetual calendar. There's another thing interesting about the dial. The dial, and I hope I have another image for you which shows more detail. Yeah. There's a little anecdote about the dial. The dial is in fact made of solid 18 karat honey gold. And as you do as a developer, a couple of years ago, we said, okay, we need to do prototypes. So we ordered prototypes and so on. And we didn't have any prototype pieces in March. But what we had in March was the general lockdown. Or in Europe, we had a lockdown. Not only in Germany, but also in Switzerland. So the industry stopped working. So it was a quite stressful time, but at that time, we didn't receive any prototypes of the dial. Sometimes crises also have a positive aspect. So we worked on with the team and we found a solution all internally. This dial is all internally made in-house. It's a 5-piece dial, which means if you see all my pointer, this is the main carrier dial. The 3 sub-dials are separately integrated, as well as the ring outside. They are phrased by a machine. So we've taken away the huge part of the material, but we leave the numbers out. And then we do a black rhodium plating. And after that, we really painstakingly work, take away the upper coating from the numbers so they appear again in solid honey gold. It creates an enormous amount of depth. And to be honest, we were very surprised. We never knew that we were able to do such on this scale mechanical treatment. So that was a very fine thing. You may recognize the tourbillon bridge over here, which is also which is 245 angle degrees, and it's really bent. It's not bent, that would be the easy way, but it's machined in a curve because it's a little bit lower. Because on top you have, of course, the mechanism, which is integrated, but the mechanism of the perpetual calendar.
Oh, Tony, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Is this the only watch with a fully in-house dial from Lange?
No, In fact, the first watch of this collection, you have the two-part enamel dial we also make in-house. As you may have heard that since 2014, we have in-house enameling also. So the enamel dials is full in-house made. But this is, you could say it like, this is the first non-enamel in-house dial. So to make it more detailed. 684 parts. Yes, if you count that little chain of the fusion chain mechanism as one piece, because the chain is already 636 parts. Imagine a small, like a bicycle chain, which is 0.4 millimeters thick and 0.5 wide, and has 636 parts. So it's the watch has 35 hours of power reserve. It's limited edition of 50 pieces. The case diameter is 43 millimeters, 60.6 millimeters high. It's
Tony,
made in.
can I just ask you to elaborate on one thing? I think a lot of collectors understand the Fusean chain as a way to deliver constant force to the tourbillon to compensate for the diminishing amount of torque from the barrel as the watch unwinds. But there's even more to it than that, isn't there? You have to have some system to keep the watch going when you wind the watch, and you have to have a system to protect the chain. Maybe you could elaborate on those elements.
And that's why we jump to the movement now. So here you have a view on the back side. We flipped over and on the back side, but it's hard to see. Here underneath, it's the upper part. So from the crown, the upper part, here you have the barrel, and in between you have the little chain. And what happens? And normally when you have a mechanical watch, you fully wound the watch, and it's like the old days toys for the little boys, like the little cars where you put the key in and you wind it and you put it on the table and it goes. In the beginning it goes very fast and then it slows down. That's the same thing which is happening in a mechanical watch, manually wound. If you wind the watch, in the beginning you have quite a torque on the movement, but then it slows down. A couple of hundred years ago, for the battle of precision, of course, the genius watchmakers thought about how to cope with this. Because in the beginning, it's perfect. You do your regulating of your escapement on your maximum torque. And of course, after 24 hours, you have less torque. You could cope with that. So what did they think? They were thinking about a system that mainspring that has that curve. It goes down. But if you connect your mainspring, which has its torque, which gives its torque to the movement in the beginning high and it lowers down, you connect it by a wire or sometimes a little chain. You connect it with a fusee. And I always call it, what is a fusee? A fusee is call it a kind of a honeymoon cake shaped wheel, which is divided in different circumferences. And how does it work? In the beginning, the connection by the barrel, which is fully wound, the connection by the little chain is connected by the little circumference. And what is the principle? It's the action of lever. In the beginning, you have a smaller circumference. That fusee is connected with the gear train of the movement. So it takes its force by the little circumferences. So you have a shorter leverage. You don't need more leverage because you have maximum torque. As time goes by, gently, the circumferences go bigger. So at the end, if your mainspring has lower torque, it's connected by a larger circumference on the fusee. So that compensates, in fact. That is compensating your reduced torque on the gear train. So that gives the compensating, so you have a constant force. So it's a very, what we call internally, it's a very classical constant force system. It has its limitations. So that's why we went to another way, when we developed the side work movements, which also has a constant force, but that is completely different by a remontoir system. Like the Lange 31, the side works, the Richard Lange jumping second, and the Terra Luna. And all that, what I just explained, unfortunately, it's very much hidden under the wonderful but very classical chronograph rattrapante. So do not confuse this system with the high-tech or high-mech system we have made in the triple split, which we launched 2 years ago. You know, that rattrapante chronograph with isolating systems, with instantaneously jumping minutes, and not only rattrapante within 1 minute or 30 minutes, but over to 12 hours. That is completely different. That has isolating system, and that is a technical masterpiece. I think I'm going to tell something and speak about that watch maybe tomorrow in our meeting. I can maybe go a little bit more in detail. But this is a very classical approach, because since you want, of course, a complicated watch should be very much wearable. And I think a 16.6 millimeter thickness of watch is very wearable. It's all about proportions. What did we do different than the in 2017 Lange piece? It was, we have a very classical, very much to pocket watches orientated finishing of the bridges. We have, so to say, frosted, granulate or frosted bridges with, of course, the 45 angles. And you see, when you take a close look at the movement, very inner angles. So it's all very classical watchmaking. That's nice. Lifestyle picture of a beautiful, beautiful watch. You even recognize that we have made the moon disc out of solid honey gold. We did the same black rhodium coating, and all the tiny little stars, even the ones on the Milky Way, you could recognize they are hand engraved. So I came to an end with my presentation. So Jeff, I think I pass the word to you. Thank you for your attention.
Great, Tony. Thank you very, very much. We now move to Christian Selmoni, who is in Switzerland. So we're covering a lot of the world here today. And Christian is going to talk to us about the Cabinotier watches and also the tourbillon chronograph. But I think Christian is going to start by giving us a background and history of Vacheron Constantin with grand complications. Christian?
Yes. So just a second. All right, so first of all, thank you very much for hosting me. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. And as you are mentioning, Jeff, we will talk about Les Cabinotiers. And maybe one slide to introduce what is Les Cabinotiers. Well, this is the workshop of Vacheron Constantin in which we are developing unique timepieces using two different modes, if I may say. So one is the real bespoke mode in which we are, let's say, listening to our clients and offering, let's say, the watch of their dreams. And so they are really truly bespoke timepieces. And the other mode is a mode that we have started to develop some 3 years ago, in which we are developing timepieces in unique pieces that we are offering to one single client, of course. And these watches, like the one that you see on the screen, are kind of a demonstration of our know-how, both in terms of fine watchmaking, technicality, but also in the field of decorative crafts. And since 3 years now, we have let's say, increased a lot the activity of Cabinotier. And until now, the most spectacular and the most complicated timepiece that we made is obviously that timepiece, which is the reference 57-260. And as many of you know already, so this is the most complicated timepiece ever made in history, with 57 complications displayed on the two faces, and no less than 8 years of work from scratch for 3 master watchmakers. So that is until today, the most spectacular and the most complicated timepiece that we made at Les Cabinotiers. And so we have a yearly theme when we talk about Les Cabinotiers timepieces, and this year it's La musique du temps, so in English, the music of time. So I'm sure that you understand already that it's going to be about chiming watches, striking watches. And we presented at Watches and Wonder this year two grand complications which are in this theme, La musique du temps. So let's start with the first one. So that is a super grand complication. So this is tempo. And tempo is until now our most complicated wristwatch that we ever made at Vacheron Constantin. We have 24 complications which are displayed on the two faces. And we have an astonishing number of components. So we have more than 1,000 components in the movement of tempo. And as you know, certainly, so watches which have more than 1,000 components in their movement are extremely rare. So that is really an amazing timepiece. And I would like to present to you quickly the complications of this timepiece, the main complications. To start with the main dial. So it's a quite unusual way to display functions on watch face. The idea of the technicians and the watchmaker was really to give enough space to the most visible complication of this timepiece, which is the split-second chronograph in the center. So you have the time indications on the upper left part of the dial. At the right, you have the 30 minutes recorder for the chronograph and also the 60 seconds. The lower part of the main dial is dedicated to the Gregorian perpetual calendar functions. As you can see on the left of the case of tempo, there is a trigger, and so of course we are in the La musique du temps, and this is a minute repeater. Let's have a look to the back of tempo. We will see some other complications, mostly astronomical complications. But the first thing that you will notice is that again we have the indication of time. But this is not the civil time. So this is the solar time. So tempo is an equation of time, and you have the civil time on the main dial, and you have the solar time on the second dial. In addition, we have some other astronomical complications. To start with the moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock, which is retrograding, and you have other complications which are displayed between 9 and 3 o'clock, and those are the sunrise and sunset indication, plus the duration of the day and the night. Finally, we have a tourbillon at 12 o'clock and power reserve indicator on the tourbillon cage.
Yeah, Christian, if I can interrupt for just a moment.
Yep.
On the sunrise sunset, that's obviously something that is very geographically specific to where the owner of the watch happens to live. Can you explain how that is going to be accomplished?
Yes, of course. So maybe just to start the explanation, this is typically the kind of complications that clients for bespoke timepieces love very much, because this is the possibility to adjust very precisely this indication to the place where they live. And so by doing so, we are using a dedicated cames in the movement, which are set individually according to the location where our client lives. And so we have clients who can be in Russia, where there is a lot of, let's say, a lot of differences between indications, or we have clients in Singapore, where it's much more, let's say, easier to do it. But we always do for our unique timepieces, we adjust precisely these cames to the location where our client is living. So maybe to carry on with tempo, so you have seen on the animation. So in addition, tempo is a timepiece that you can wear on both sides. So we have developed a very simple self-interchangeability system for the bracelet. You just remove the strap and you flip tempo on your wrist, and you may decide on which side you want to wear the watch, on the civil time, or maybe in a more romantic way on the solar time. So that is all for tempo. So in a nutshell, so 24 complications, 1,163 components, and a combination of chiming complications, astronomical complications as well, and finally also stop. It's a stopwatch. It's a split-second chronograph. wearable on both sides, and obviously a unique timepiece, which was sold a few days after Watches and Wonders. So a unique example. So let's move now to the second, let's say, super complication for Les Cabinetiers this year. And this is Ode to Music. So this is a timepiece that I personally appreciate a lot. Maybe for some of you, it will remind you Celestia from 2017, which was another super complication dedicated to astronomical complications. Both watches, Ode to Music and Celestia, are the result of one single technical development, a very complicated astronomical movement. The difference between Celestia and the Ode to Music is that Ode to Music has chiming complications, and Celestia was only about astronomical complications. So we have 19 complications, again, displayed on the two sides of Ode to Music. And obviously, this is a chiming watch, it's a minute repeater. So at the heart of Ode to Music, we have a minute repeater movement, which is giving all the energy for the astronomical complications displayed on the two faces. To give you some details about the complications, so let's start again with the main dial of Ode to Music. So the first thing that I would like to talk about is the fact that we have two minute hands, and you can see the little sun on one of the two hands. So that means that Ode to Music is a running equation of time. You can immediately, instantly read the difference between the solar time and the mean time. But we have other complications on the watch face, to start with the perpetual calendar that you can see through windows and also a sub counter at 3 o'clock. You will find also a very interesting complication, I would say two complications for the moon phase indicator. In fact, this is a high precision moon phase indicator, and on top of it, there is a semi-transparent sapphire crystal, which is rotating in one solar day, indicating the day and night with precision. Finally, at 6 o'clock, again, you will find the two complications we spoke with you, Jeff, meaning the sunrise and sunset indication plus the duration of the day and the night. And again, we see these complications because we are at Les Cabinetiers, where we adjust these complications to the location where the client actually lives. So this
Christian,
is, yep.
If I could just interject, one thing that you went over very quickly, you mentioned a running equation of time. Can you tell us the difference between a running equation of time, which is more complicated, and an equation of time that shows you plus or minus, so you have to do the math in your head as to the difference between civil time and solar time? So
as you are mentioning, so if I may say, the easiest way to showcase the equation of time is to put on the watch face, let's say, an additional hand, which will indicate you the variation of the equation of time depending on the month, plus or minus, say, around 15 minutes, depending on the season. And on the running equation of time, it's a much complicated system, which allows you to read instantly the difference between the mean time and the solar time. In the picture that we see here, so there is not a lot of minutes of difference, but if we were in the month of September, for example, the difference would be much bigger than this. So the difference between the two is that with the running equation of time, you get the instant visible difference between the solar time and the mean time.
Thank you.
All right, so if we move to the verso of Ode to Music, in a nutshell, we have a transparent sky chart, which is rotating in one sidereal day, so a little bit less than 24 hours. And on the sapphire crystal, we have one part which is tinted in blue, and this indicates the northern hemisphere, so the part of the sky that we can see in the northern hemisphere in the night. And that sky chart makes one rotation in one sidereal day. So for Ode to Music, one slide to give you a summary of this timepiece. So 19 complications, again on the two faces, a mix of chiming complications and astronomical functions. But I would like to mention one thing which is highly important. So we have a watch which is very elegant and wearable, since this is a 45 millimeter diameter case, but a very, very thin timepiece. You can see that the movement is only 7.84 millimeter thick. So it's absolutely incredible for such a grand complication. So now we are going to leave Les Cabinetiers and Unique Pieces and present you the last timepiece for today, which is from the traditional collection. So the traditional is the collection in which presents usually its most complicated watches in limited editions or small series. And I would like, before to introduce you the novelty of this year, just to show you one picture. So in this timepiece, which is a tourbillon and chronograph, we have the chronograph complication, which is one of our most cherished, if I may say, complications. And we have a great legacy, a great heritage when we speak about chronographs. And I wanted to show you just one timepiece, which is a very important one at Vacheron Constantin. This is the Corps of Engineers USA from 1918. The story behind that timepiece is that the Corps of Engineers contacted Vacheron Constantin in 1917, and they, after some discussion, they ordered us 5,000 chronographs like that in silver. And that was, as you can imagine, a fabulous order in a very difficult year. And Vacheron Constantin has been able to deliver 3,768, to be exact, chronographs to the Corps of Engineers until 1919. So that is a nice story, which is going to introduce our novelty. And I would like to introduce you quickly the new traditional tourbillon chronograph with a short video. So to start, so we have the étagé case and lugs designed from the traditional. In the dial, we have the railway minute track. We will see Dauphine hours and minute hands typical from traditional, all the aesthetic codes of traditional. And talking about the tourbillon, so instead of being driven by the pinion of the seconds wheel, the tourbillon is set in motion by an intermediate wheel of the running seconds display. So this gives us the possibility to have a very large and very impressive tourbillon and to showcase the fabulous finishing of the cage. In addition, so this timepiece, we also have power reserve indicator, which is at 6 o'clock and 45-minute counter from the chronograph. And last thing, which I would like to talk to you, it's a single button chronograph. So this is a wink to the great tradition of the early wristwatches, chronograph with wristwatches of Vacheron Constantin at the beginning of the 20th century. Rose gold case, single button chronograph, 42.5 millimeter, and a new timepiece in a traditional lineup. So, well, it's done for me. So thank you very much for letting me present these beautiful watches.
Christian, thank you very much. I think now that we have a little bit of time for some questions. Minda?
Yes, Brandon has a question for all of the panelists. Are you there, Brandon? Can we hear you?
I don't have a great microphone right now, so I'm sorry if it's hard to hear me, but I was just curious about your thoughts on the watchmaking skills that are most at risk of going extinct because of a lack of apprenticeship opportunities.
In case you couldn't hear that, that's what are the watchmaking skills which are most at risk of going extinct due to insufficient apprenticeship? That's a great question. I think we'll start with Stephen, please.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Brendan, for the question. Yeah, this is something which Robert and myself identified quite early on, 2005, 2006, and we were in Baselworld talking to other independents, Philippe Dufour, Yann Helter, and we realized that we all encountered the same challenges that the students coming out of watchmaking schools no longer had the foundation skills to actually make parts and do hand finishing. And the reason is for this, it's very logical that 99.99% of the industry doesn't need these skills. They need skilled technicians with a good manual dexterity to build movements which are already very precisely made in terms of their components. But that meant that we felt that it was vital to maintain these skills. And talking to other collectors, we realized that they were concerned about the loss of these skills. Who will be able to restore, repair, and service, especially complicated pieces in the future? So in 2008, we created the Time Foundation, and the idea was to add to that training and make sure that we inventoried, catalogued, but more importantly, pass on these skills to future generations. So the way we did that was we created the Naissance d'une Montre project. Michel Boulanger, a watchmaking school teacher from Paris, was the first person to participate in that. And the mission was to practice the individual skills, traditional skills only for hand making, a movement from start to finish. And it took 6 years to do. But the fantastic thing was that as Michel himself was a confirmed dedicated teacher, that while he pulled those skills, he would then be able to transmit them to a larger audience through his students, which he's been doing since 2015.
Thank you. Anthony, do you want to have a go at them?
Yeah, of course. Great. It's a great question. And I think it's especially maybe for us, because for us being in former Eastern Germany in Glashütte, we are far away from the watchmaking center of the world, but still Switzerland today. I think it became already quite early clear after Mr. Blümlein and Walter Lange refounded the company in 1990 and launching the first watches in 1994. They soon know, oh listen, it's very hard to get real good trained watchmakers, not only watchmakers, but also the people who do the finishing of the parts, so the decoration department. And they opened, and we opened at Lange and Söhne our own watchmaking school in 1997 already. And so we have a more or less constant flow of talents coming into the company. And not only for watchmaking, but also for finishing department, with of course all the handcrafted and the old traditional ways of finishing. So I think we are lucky today that these two great visionaries had already thought of the idea of opening that school in 1997. Today it's okay, especially for us in Germany.
Tony, can you just add a couple of words about the prizes that you give to honor students?
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeff. I was not thinking about it, but we have the Walter Lange Scholarship now since I think more than 10 years, and where we invite talents of watchmaking schools all over the world who can apply, and they get a task. In spring, most of the times in spring, and they get more than a half a year to build their pieces, and then the winner will be rewarded with a certain amount of money, which is quite important to support also his further educational. That's why it's for, and we did that in memory of Walter Lange, who unfortunately left us 3 years ago. At 92 years old, but he was always very keen on young watchmakers, young talents, and this was already a very important thing. So that's why we do that every year. This year, unfortunately, not due to the crisis, but we will pick it up as soon as things go normal, and then we continue. But I think it's a very important impulse also for talents and support creativity and such.
Christian, did you want to answer this one?
Yes, with pleasure. So my esteemed colleagues spoke about watchmaking métier, watchmaking crafts. So I would like to add something which is a bit more connected with decorative crafts. So if we look back to the history of Vacheron Constantin, we see that together with watchmaking crafts, we have a lot of great tradition of decorative crafts, what we call the métier d'art. So for me, I think it's very important to. So we have 4 historical crafts, which are gem setting, guillochage, hand engraving, and enameling. And I think it's very important that brands, maisons continue to support these crafts, because only very few artisans and artists are able to do such crafts. I just want to take the example of enameling. I remember when I joined Vacheron Constantin, we had one enameler who was doing a miniature painting enamel, and she was doing usually 3 to 4 watches, not more, sometimes 3 only watches in a year. And at this time in 1992, we couldn't find, honestly, a lot of clients for that. But we were still doing these watches, because if we were not carrying to do such crafts, the know-how would disappear. So I think even if watchmaking and associated crafts have been successful in the last, say, 15 years or 20 years, I think it's still very important to remind and remember that these crafts are fragile, and we have to support them.
Linda, do we have time for one more question?
Yes, we do. We actually have quite a few questions. We're going to go probably another 10 minutes so that we can try to address them all. The next question is from a collector calling in, and I believe that his question is for Lange. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, Anthony. All the way from Nepal here. Really nice to see you. My question is it possible to have an instantaneous date jump in a perpetual calendar, like for February month, 29/1 or 28/1?
Thank you for your question. It's a very good question. The answer is yes. We have the Lange 1 tourbillon perpetual calendar, which is in fact an outside date perpetual calendar, which jumps instantaneously all the indications at midnight. So it's already existing. The Lange, the turbograph doesn't have it. It's a very classical approach, but we also have it in the datograph perpetual tourbillon. So all functions jump instantaneously at midnight. Also included, of course, 28th of February to the 1st of March, of course. Yeah, it's feasible. And Lange, it's feasible since 2012 when we launched it first time, and since then we've been integrated in more watches. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Encore, for calling in from so far away. D. Mings has a question. We can hear you if you're there. Could you ask your question live if you're here? Okay, his question was...
Hello?
Oh,
Can
there
you hear
you
me?
are. Yes, we can. Can you please ask your question live to the panelists?
Yes, thank you everyone for your time. I really appreciate the presentation. My question is, why is sterling silver not commonly used in watch cases?
Christian, do you want to take that one first, please?
Well, I think that sterling silver was used in the past for many watches. I think that when we speak about prestige brands like Vacheron Constantin, for example, and others, I think that the gold and platinum, let's say precious metals, have always been, let's say, preferred to other materials when it's about our watches. So I think the precious material enhances the beauty and the complexity of its mechanism. So I think this is a question of tradition in the field of high-end watchmaking. And of course, these days, things have changed, and we see some very high-end brands which are using other materials such as titanium or even more exotic materials. So, but I think the silver is pretty much associated with a kind of watchmaking from the past, and it's not that much in fashion, but it will be, of course, possible to do it.
Does anyone else from the panel want to answer that, or should we move on?
Yeah, I can. Thanks very much for the question. I think as Christian said, often we tend to, with high-end pieces where there's a lot of work to actually make each case, that the precious noble metals, gold and platinum, are often more used. But silver, the difficulty for silver with a case is that it does oxidize, unless you're going to do some sort of surface treatment on it. But then you have the problem of that wearing through. It's a similar thing we used to encounter in watchmaking 30, 40, 50 years ago, perhaps with white gold, when the alloy of white gold would tend to oxidize as well, because of course gold is yellow in its pure form. And so to have 18 karat white gold, you have to include a very white hard metal, which was palladium, notably. And the amount of palladium used to be not so high. So I think that's one reason why silver isn't used so commonly today, because of this oxidation question. But certainly in the past, there were some really great pieces where it was used. Thank you.
Thank you. And Anthony, before you answer, we had another question that you maybe want to answer at the same time. He said, for Lange, what's the difference between honey gold and yellow gold?
I think I better answer that question. Why? Because my colleagues before, they answered everything what there is to answer about this question. So I have nothing to include. So what is the difference between honey gold? It's an alloy, and honey gold is 18 karat, but it has some other materials included, what gives it special color, and also it's after a certain treatment, also it's special hardness, but both are 18 karat gold. So 18 karat yellow gold is like Stephen before said, that's the natural color of gold, it's yellow. But if you have other materials including, then you can change color, and in combination with a certain treatment, you can get also a changement in hardness, but it's still 18 karat gold, but twice as hard and a beautiful honey color. What does honey color mean? You know, I think it's you could see it as it's a color right in between white gold and pink gold, and it's very interesting to see if you wear it, that due to different reflections and different angles, it appears all the time slightly different. It's very elegant and it's very discreet.
Thank you so much. We've had quite a few questions come in, and some of them are very technical. So I know that we've been trying to answer those behind the scenes, and we will certainly send those to the panelists as they come in. My friend John from Miami, after all of your presentations, he said, I think you need a degree in engineering to grasp all of this. So I think everyone is really enjoying it. So we're going to end with the questions now, and I'll go back to you, Jeff.
Well, I want to thank my friends for fabulous presentations about astonishing watches, and want to thank all the participants for their questions as well, which were very, very good today. So thank you very much, Tony, Christian, and Stephen. And for Stephen, a good trip back. I hope you can find a flight.
Yeah, well, it's looking okay so far, but you know, we take it as it is. We adapt to the situation. Great. Thanks very much.